Hi everybody, my name is Sam Cass. I'm a recovering chef and policy guy and investor. I'm here with Paul Lightfoot of BrightFarms, and we are in one of their biggest facilities to celebrate Earth Day, to see how you're growing all these local greens that are nourishing families in the area. And so can't wait to see how the magic is done.
Well, thanks for coming, Sam. Let's take a look.
All right, thanks for having me. So Paul, tell me why you started BrightFarm. What was your vision?
So I had a background in automating the supply chains of retailers. Did that really during my 30s. But on a personal basis, I became really passionate about food, how I fed myself, my family, really thinking about food that made us healthier and with a better environmental footprint, right? So I ended up coming up with this idea of building a decentralized network of indoor salad farms that competed with a supply chain that was long and complex. We replaced that long and complex supply chain with this short and simple supply chain, where we're essentially growing in the same communities where the food is consumed in a way that's better for the environment, it's better for the product, it's a week fresher, and we think therefore it'll be better for people's health. Get them to eat more food that's delicious, local, and sustainable. The way we produce food in America has a host of problems, right? From being the leading source of chronic diseases, sort of nutrition problems, but also in terms of the impact on the environment. Salads, of course, is not the worst actor in the overall food supply chain, but I do think that the way that salads are grown in fields in the West Coast is far from optimal, right? So they're using a lot of water where there is no water. They're pulling fossil water out of the ground, depleting aquifers, the land is subsiding, right? In addition, they've taken the biodiversity out of the Salinas Valley, out of the Central Valley in a way that's been a disaster for the water cycle, also releasing a lot of carbon. We think that taking those agricultural jobs that used to be local in places like this and have made their way out to the West Coast or to Mexico, we want to bring them back into communities like this and do it in a way where water is used responsibly, and there's a lot less used here, where land is more freely available, and we also use a small fraction of the land, and we're growing away with a lighter environmental footprint. So Sam, this is where it starts. This is the seeding line, right?
All right.
These boards are essentially the unit of production.
Okay.
They're wider on the top, narrow on the bottom.
Okay, oh yeah,
so the plants grow out of the top while the roots dangle below in the water.
Yeah.
And the first thing we're going to do is fill them with this grow media. It's like potting soil, and put the seeds in it. So let's put this aside, and we'll follow this line down. From this hopper, the grow boards are taken into this section that's literally filling them with the grow media, right? And then it scooches along this conveyor line where the speed of the belt is indexed with the speed of this rolling drum.
Nice.
That uses a vacuum
all the seeds,
to hold the seeds in place. And then the speed releases them to get the right density. So when they're growing on the pond, the plants are spaced out perfect for the environment to thrive.
Yeah.
The last things that happen here is we add more grow media to the top, and then they go into the water tunnel. Because as we know, plants don't need sunlight for the seeds to start growing. They just need to be wet. So we get them wet, they're activated, and then we stack them right here, where they go to the next stage of their life, which is the germination chamber, which we'll go see next.
Nice. Awesome.
Let's take a walk in the germ chamber.
All right.
You remember from the seeding line, the seeds were put into the potting soil, the grow media in those furrows, and then it spends a few days in here. Let's go on inside.
It's like a steam room.
Yeah. As you can see in here, we've got this misting system. 100% humidity is what the plants need to thrive, but they don't need light. So we stack them vertically to save space.
Right.
And these plants, depending on their variety, spend 2 days to 4 days sprouting in here. You can see some baby plants growing in there.
Yeah.
And then after that, they make their way out to be transplanted into the ponds.
Got it.
Here you can see the little baby seedlings. These are probably 3 days old right now. They're ready to go out into the greenhouse. For now, they're at the end of their period in the germ chamber.
It's amazing how, when they get the right conditions, how fast they grow.
It is amazing. So Sam, this is a board that spent 3 days in a germination chamber.
Yeah.
This is really the babies. They're coming out of the nurturing environment where they didn't need sun. They just needed 100% humidity.
Yeah.
And they could be stacked because they didn't need sun. But now it's time to let them unfurl and grow, right?
Yep.
So we'll actually take one of these boards with the baby plants on it,
Yep.
and we'll put it in the pond.
Okay.
And this is a fast growing variety, so it'll be on the pond really for a 2 or 3 week period.
Yeah.
And now it's got the sun beating down on it through our glass roofs so that the plant can really thrive and grow. This water's got a little bit of red tinge to it because there's iron in the water, right?
Yeah.
Iron is a mineral that the plants need to thrive. So this water has added to it everything the plants need for perfect conditions for growing.
Yeah.
It's got the right fertilizer mix in it. It's got the right dissolved oxygen. It's maintained at the perfect temperature so that the plants really have a perfect environment for growing consistently on their 2 to 3 week cycle from this transplant side to the harvest side.
And so are you monitoring the plants as they go down? What's your system there?
Yes. So this is, a super high-tech controlled environment for growing greens. The plants are having a pretty natural experience. They're growing plants just like they would in an uncontrolled environment.
Yeah.
But because we want to have the perfect nurturing set of factors for them, we have computers that measure everything, thousands of sensors, millions of data points being recorded. We've got these robotic cameras, you can see one moving over there, that take consistent pictures of the plants growing on the ponds. And then we've got computers that are essentially making decisions about when to open and close vents, when to turn on or turn off lights, when to add temperature or take away temperature from the water and from the air. And really the high-tech brain behind this is what we call BrightOS. BrightOS is our proprietary technology, and it uses artificial intelligence, it uses camera scanning and machine learning to make the perfect environment for these plants to thrive in terms of yield, in terms of quality, and in terms of food safety.
Yeah, love it. Super efficient. So obviously water is going to be a challenge. It's a challenge today and will forevermore be a challenge.
Yeah.
Tell me about, is this water reused? How efficient is the water usage per plant?
So most of America's salads are grown where there is no water, right? The Salinas Valley is pulling what I call fossil water out of the aquifers. It's inherently unsustainable. It's out of balance. More water comes out every year than is recharged. We're growing in areas that generally have abundant water, but we're still using 80% less than field agriculture. Because even though these ponds are filled with water, it's not going anywhere. There's no runoff. The ponds are covered, so there's very little evaporation. The only water we lose is water that's in the tissue of the plants that goes off and gets eaten. So not only are we in a place where there's more water, but we use a tiny fraction of the amount of water than the incumbent supply chain with which we compete.
Got it.
So as walking down the length of the greenhouse, it's nice because you can see the life cycle of the plants from the transplant side when they're babies that just came out of germination as they make their way down to the harvest side. And for the ones that are green, you can just see the depth of the green getting deeper and fuller, right?
So I see some lights up there. Now you have the big light of the sun, which is pretty cheap form of energy. What do you have to sometimes augment with artificial light?
So you're right in that the big light in the sky, the sun, is ubiquitous and free. It's the majority of the energy that our plants use to grow. But certain times a year, in places like Pennsylvania, the days are shorter. So in December, January, and February, we augment the natural light with the artificial lighting. Exactly right. All right, so these are the plants that have been growing here for 2 to 3 weeks, and they're ready to be eaten, right? So the harvesting entails taking them off the pond, putting them on the conveyor, and sending them off to the automated harvesting line.
Nice.
We can see these beautiful white roots, which is an indication that they're healthy, and we're putting them in this conveyor line that's got water on it, right? So the plants are still growing.
Yeah.
They're not starting to lose their life on their way to harvest.
You see it just floats right down.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And as I said, the empty space created on this side of the pond,
Yeah.
when the boards are taken out for harvesting, is transferred to that side when that side pushes down,
Yeah.
making room on that side for the newly germinated boards, which go on the same day.
Got it.
This is a flow facility. We don't have any warehousing or storage. Our coolers are only sized to fit one day's harvest, essentially, so that everything that's harvested today goes out tonight and is at our retailers tomorrow, right? You know, and if you think about the big picture, we're competing with what I call an incumbent supply chain, which is highly centralized and industrialized, you know, in California and Arizona, and it's got a really long and complex supply chain. The length and the complexity of that supply chain makes the product a week old. It's been bumping around in the back of a 53-foot truck for 5 to 7 days. When it gets to the retailer, we're tens of miles away, and we're there the next day after harvest.
Yeah.
We've got nearly a 1 week freshness advantage, which makes a huge difference for consumers and obviously for our retailer partners.
Got it.
But what's important about it is that it's pesticide free. No pesticides, whether organic compliant or not, are ever used here.
Yeah.
We use beneficials, good insects that chase the pests, the bad insects, and because of that, we always have 100% pesticide-free produce. So Sam, this is what we call Sunny Crunch. It's this beautiful hybrid of romaine and iceberg.
Yeah.
So it's got this sweet, delicious flavor to it, but it's also got this fantastic mouth crunch, right? It's got that feeling when you eat it. We find that this is the product that kids gravitate toward, and me as well.
Yeah, totally. It's a great lettuce. Super versatile, delicious, but with a bite. You gotta have a bite, man.
You need to have a bite to hold the dressing or whatever else is on it. It's our #1 seller. This is my favorite product.
Yeah, that's great.
So Sam, this is the harvest line, right? Here this automated conveyor is taking it into this bandsaw where we adjust the height of the blade so that it cuts the perfect ratio of plant to stem, essentially, right? And then it's taken off into a cooled chamber where the packing is taking place. And I think we've got about 5,000 pounds a day of salad that comes through this harvesting line, which is which is terrific.
That's a lot of salad.
So Sam, this is where the magic happens, right?
Nice.
This machine takes the product from the boards that are growing on the pond, puts it into these grow crates, which then go into a packing cooler, right?
Nice. Straight up here and then into the boxes.
That's right. So obviously on the other side of this line, we saw the finished product heading into the pack room.
Yep.
But the other material flows include this stuff. This is the roots and the stems and the potting soil that we grew the salad in. And of course, it's filled with this wonderful nutrient bath, right, that it was floating in. So this is a valuable waste stream, and generally we share it with local farmers. So they'll feed this to their animals, they'll actually spread this like compost on their fields, and so none of this is wasted.
Yep.
The grow boards that continue down the line get cleaned and reused, and because the grow cycles are all 2 to 3 weeks, those boards will be used 15, 20 times a year, and they last for years.
Nice. That looks like it'll make some good compost right there for sure.
That's absolutely right.
I could use some of it.
We'll fill your trunk on the way home.
Nice.
So we saw the plants getting harvested. Then they go into a series of coolers for packing and on the way to stores.
Nice.
So let's check out the coolers.
Cool. See it. Yeah, nice door.
So you can feel that it's cold in here, right? It's
cold.
probably 35 degrees.
I need a hat.
You need, you do. Basically, we want to maybe spend about 2 hours in here so that the temperature of the leaves that we've harvested get to the same temperature as this room, which is where they'll be packed at.
Right.
Here we see, the beautiful pink stems of beet greens.
They're beautiful.
Baby beet greens, thank you. And this is Sunny Crunch, again, my favorite. And after these plants have all had their temperature drop to, let's say, the mid-30s, we'll wheel them into the pack room.
Love it.
So let's check that out.
Check it out. The smell in here is amazing.
Yeah.
It just feels like you're in a salad right now.
Love it.
All right, now it's in a box.
Yeah, well, from the pre-cool, it comes into this pack room to put into these, tamper-proof clamshells, and then they run through this conveyor where the machine puts on the label, the date stamp. They go through that hole in the wall into what we call the holding cooler. Let's check it out.
Cool.
And there you go.
There you have it.
Products getting palletized, cartonized, out the door, harvested today, in the retailers tomorrow.
Just like that?
Just like that.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah. So now that we're done with the pack room, this is a holding cooler. As I said earlier, we don't warehouse or store. Everything is flow, right? So what's harvested today goes out tomorrow, and there's no room really for more than 1 day's worth of product at a time.
There you go.
This is the finished product of Sunny Crunch.
There's your favorite.
This is a gift.
Back again.
This is a gift for you to take with you.
Nice, man.
That's
Thank you.
right. It's got the taste, the yield, it's got the sales, and it's ready to go.
Yeah, it says right here, light, crispy, and crunchy. Better than iceberg. So I think the last time I saw you, we were having a beer in Italy at a soccer game. I was interviewing our former president for a big event around food and technology, talking about where the future was headed. You know, it's hard to imagine all that's happened between then and now. And, you know, I think one thing is, you know, that definitely climate change is getting worse. Our policies have not kept up with the issue, but it does feel like there's a moment now. There's a lot of momentum, a lot of energy, a lot of resources, both from, you know, the private sector and investors, but also the government. Obviously, new administration is getting very aggressive on this. Like, where do you see these issues going over the next 4, 6, 10 years?
Even if we succeed in meeting our Paris Accord targets in transportation, energy, and in industry, we'll fail to meet our goals if we don't get rid of emissions, essentially, in food, right? So I welcome the carbon bank concept that the Biden administration is working on. I welcome the private carbon marketplaces that we're seeing spring up to meet the demand of these corporates that want to offset their emissions. I think that agriculture has a huge role to play in getting us to carbon neutral as a society, and I hope we do it and do it straightforwardly.
I think we have to, right? I mean, if we don't, we won't give ourselves the time to get to the next generations of technologies that could really take even more carbon out of our atmosphere. So it's a kind of our only hope.
And I imagine as an investor in the space, you're looking at this as well, right? What companies out there could accelerate that conversion from carbon emission to carbon sequestration? I can't think of anything more important right now.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a transformation, a revolution in what we also, in what's possible in terms of what we can expect from agriculture, but also what we then expect from it. And I think in the role that it plays in society, as really, I think, has the chance to be a hero to kind of save us from ourselves, save our food system from the onslaught of carbon.
So I think there's something a little bit magical about the food system, which is that, well, it's unique, right? We can't reduce the amount of food we eat like we could reduce our air miles or the amount of driving we do, right? That's unique. At the same time, though, it's unique in that food can actually pull carbon out of the atmosphere instead of just releasing less of it, right? And so if we do this right over the next 5, 10 years, we will use food as a lever to start pulling carbon out. And I think that's where you'll see the food system really shine as a good actor on the global stage.
Obviously, it seems like you're growing pretty fast. What's the future hold for BrightFarms?
This facility opened about a year ago. Super proud of it. We're opening right now in North Carolina. Super proud of that facility as well. After that, we're looking to open as fast as we can in New England and then in Texas. And really within 5 years, we want to have a major greenhouse farm like this, bringing delicious, locally produced, sustainably produced food, you know, within reach of 2/3 of America.
That's a lot of farms.
We got a lot of work to do. That's a lot of lettuce,
That's a lot
as the investors say.
That's a lot of lettuce. So being Earth Day,
Yeah.
and everybody watching, what would be your advice to folks about what they can do in their own lives to have an impact on climate change and sustainability?
Well, all of us should think about our footprints in terms of transportation and energy consumption, reduce wherever we can, use renewables wherever we can. But when it comes to food, which is a big part of, you know, the global carbon emissions, it's, you know, 25 to 30% of global emissions. I think people should first start by eating more plants and by eating more food that's produced regeneratively.
Well, man, thanks for having me. Super impressive to see how you brought this vision to life. Obviously, you've come a long, long way, and it'd be great to see where it goes in the years ahead.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Sam.
Bye.
Take care.